Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn. And today we're diving into a seismic moment in politics. Joining us is the brilliant Ben Habib, the visionary behind the newly launched Advance UK, a party which is vowing to haul Britain back from the abyss. A former Brexit and party MEP, Reforms UK's ex-deputy leader, and a razor-sharp commentator. Ben now steps up as leader in waiting with a mission that's igniting debate. Get ready for a roller coaster of revelations. Ben, a very warm welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Andrew. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's a real pleasure. And congratulations, officially launched Advance UK. You talk about specific existential threats, constitutional, cultural, and economic. What specific existential threats does Advance UK aim to tackle, and how will you pull Britain back from the precipice?
So, over decades, we've seen a number of changes in our country, which I think have now rendered it on the precipice, if not already over it. And if we are over it, we need to be lassoed and pulled back on to safe ground. But I think it's a function of a number of different things. First and foremost, it's part of this desire that's gripped the world and progressively gripped it since World War II to be governed through supranational institutions, through international law, which originally I think came from good motives because they didn't want a conflagration like World War II. But since then, basically, domestic democracies have been set aside in the pursuit of this kind of global form of governance. And nation states have therefore been set aside as well. Societies are set aside. The importance and privilege of citizenry is set aside. And when you set all these important things aside, you also then stamp down automatically on free speech, because those of us who wish to stand for our country, for democracy, our people, our culture, our background, all of that, they need to be shut up because it's not consistent with the global order, if you like. And of course, if you believe in the global order, then mass immigration is a perfectly fine thing. And you see further destruction to our constitution, our culture, and of course, our economy. And if you don't have a settled constitutional status, a homogeneous culture, and a people who are put first when it comes to policy making, you end up with deep economic damage, which is where we are. So we face at the moment the end of the country as we know it in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We face serious challenges to our free speech. Our democracy is deeply damaged. And frankly, equality before the law doesn't exist. And none of the political parties on the landscape at the moment answer any of those existential issues. And Advance UK therefore became a necessity to be created. And this party, I just want to quickly say before we move on to the next question, this party is not about me. It's not about any particular individual in the party. It's been structured so that the British people can give effect to what's needed for the British people by the British people. It will be an all-inclusive party which brings together the best of British who can collectively rescue this country. That's the aim.
Okay. And we talk about democracy on life support. I mean, how does Advance UK plan to restore British democracy, especially with your bold critique of failing political parties?
So, first and foremost, we have to define what it means to be the democratic unit. What is our democratic unit? I know that sounds really basic, but the other political parties don't seem to get it. So, first of all, we have to define what is the nation state. The nation state is the union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the United Kingdom, as created by the Acts of Union in 1800. And we will stand absolutely firmly by those Acts of Union. We will not allow any damage to take place with them. That is our democratic unit. We will stand for freedom of speech. So we will remove from the regulatory and legislative framework all the damage that's been done to our ability to speak freely. So non-crime hate incidents, for example, all this diversity, equity, and inclusion, which prohibits people from actually speaking up for the majority of the people in this country and promoting minorities over and to the detriment of the majority. We will restore our democracy directly by removing the tentacles of international law, supranational institutions, and quangos from the fabric of our constitution, and putting power back where it should be in Parliament, so that we can hold up parliamentarians to account. And then we will make sure that we are all equal before the law. There can be no discrimination when it comes to the exercise of justice, the exercising of justice. You can't determine whether someone goes to prison or is found guilty and the length of time they go to prison based on the color of their skin, their ethnicity, or their political ideology. That all has to be stopped. We've seen far too much of that, and through those four basic drivers, we will restore the United Kingdom.
Right. I mean, and we talk about the inner workings of UK's democratic structure, and you've been very critical about reform in the past. Can you unveil a bit more about the inner workings of Advance UK, including the college's role and members' power to oust board members?
So there are basically four principal constitutional bodies in Advance UK. The first is the membership, and they will have the power to appoint members of the college, which I'll explain in a second. They will also be able to remove, with a simple majority, any member of the board of directors of Advance UK, and that includes the leader, the chairman, anyone at any time with a simple majority vote. So that's fundamentally democratic, putting power in the hands of the people. The college will be effectively a non-executive body, a body of people who are great thinkers and fearless speakers, who are in it without being paid, who join the party because they want to ensure that the mission statement is fulfilled. They will not be part of the executive. They will not take any stipend from the party. They won't even be elected members of parliament or councillors. They are just the intellectual heft, if you like, of the party. And they will appoint the leader, other executive positions, and they will also appoint the members of the board. And the majority of the board will be members of the college. So that even though there will be members on the board from the executive who run the party, it'll be the college members who hold the executive to account on a daily basis. The intellectual eyes, ears, conscience, and soul of the party, which will constitute up to 100 people, will make sure the executive stay true to their mission statement and deliver for the country.
Right. You previously told me on the Andrew Eborn Show that we don't need another political party. What was the catalyst for launching Advance UK? And tell me how that fits in with integrity and the Great British Pack.
So integrity is just an old name for Advance UK. So Advance UK is the name that we've given integrity. There wasn't a need for a political party. That when I said that to you, that must have been when I was deputy leader of Reform. But Reform, sadly, hasn't stayed true to the promises and the indications it gave to the British people. And we can go through that if you wish. It became pretty clear to me as 2024 wound on after Farage came back as leader that Reform was not going to deliver for the British people. I didn't think that there was enough room for a political party then, but the way that Reform has behaved, the way that their behaviour has now been revealed to the public at large, particularly in the awful way in which they treated Rupert Lowe, I think it's self-evident to people now looking at the political landscape that a new political force is needed. And I was frankly, I was badgered by lots of people saying, Ben, do something, do something, do something. And so I've done something. I indicated I would, and I have. As I say, I think we've created a structure for the party that will deliver the mission statement that I've just described. And I think more importantly, Andrew, it gives the ability for the party to stay true into the long term. You know, we've seen the Conservative Party be hijacked by CCHQ, its inability to actually recall what it means to be conservative because it's been so damaged from within. And Reform, frankly, is Farage and Farage is Reform. So that doesn't bear any further discussion when it comes to the inner workings of that party. And Labour and Lib Dems, well, they don't offer any hope for this country at all. So, that's why Advance UK was born.
Yeah, and we talk about free speech, and we spoke about this on the show on a regular basis. And it's Descartes who said, "I think, therefore I am." I think it's now in the UK. I think, therefore I am arrested. And free speech is free speech is in a critical condition. Tell me how advanced UK champion free speech to prevent jail for political views while keeping the party united.
Well, first of all, I think we've got to do two critical things. We've got to repeal the Equalities Act and we have to repeal the Human Rights Act. When you put those two acts together, what you create is the bedrock of the necessity for the clamping down on free speech. Because the Human Rights Act effectively set aside the importance of being a British citizen by making the European Convention of Human Rights part of the British legal fabric. Basically, what the judicial system functioned to, the tune it danced to, was that all people in this country are equal. It doesn't matter whether you're foreign or a British citizen. That's what the Human Rights Act did. It went far beyond the need to protect the basic human rights of an individual and invaded what it means to be British. And then the Equalities Act on top of that requires that we progressively discriminate, not just the Equalities Act, there are lots of other bits of legislation as well and regulatory sort of hang-ons, if you like, that require the United Kingdom to progressively discriminate in favor of ethnic minorities, minority religious beliefs, minority sexual preferences, and so on. And that progressive discrimination, coupled with setting aside British citizenry, obviously risks creating real discord in the country. And the way that the governing class has dealt with that discord is to effectively make it wrong for us to speak out against the regulatory and legal framework. To speak out against mass migration now is regarded as being some sort of extreme position. If you're proud of our British imperial history, you are now regarded as being extreme. So the first steps we need to take are the repealing of the Equalities Act and the Human Rights Act, so we can go back to a position where we understand what it means to be British.
And we talk about free speech, and there's a number of famous people who have been imprisoned because of what they say. Lucy Connelly, for example. What's your views on her?
Well, she shouldn't be in prison. Undoubtedly, a silly tweet, a vile tweet. Um, but it was a tweet that was so evidently born out of anger and despondency at what was going on, what had happened in Southport, and or what else is going on in the country. And people must not, in because they've said something on social media, be put in prison. Lucy Connolly should never have been put in prison, and I think there were 400 others alongside her who were incarcerated after the Southport protests because of what they said, not because of what they did, including, of course, and we must never forget Peter Lynch, who was one of those, and he hanged himself in prison, a man who'd been a perfectly law-abiding individual until he said and said and said a few things and put some conspiracy theories or looked like conspiracy theories on a placard and was arrested and put in prison for it. He couldn't take it because he was essentially a fundamentally law-abiding individual, and it was too much for him to take. And he committed suicide. That the blood of Peter Lynch is on the hands of the state of the United Kingdom, and that is a terrible position to be in. In the clamping down of free speech on Peter Lynch, we actually committed him to death. That is a terrible position for this country to be in. And Lucy Connolly, I'm sure, is suffering great mental perturbations, at the moment in prison. It must be wretched for her to be there simply because she said a few things on a social media platform that others took as being vile. I mean, perhaps they were vile, but she should not be in prison for them.
Yeah.
She also, by the way, said a number of good things, how protests shouldn't be violent, etc. But they weren't used in the balance to ensure that she wasn't incarcerated.
Yeah, and absolutely. And she took down the tweet after a period of time. You talk about a two-tier justice system. And she's apparently receiving appalling treatment inside. We've heard about an alleged attack on her by some of the guards and terrible conditions there. All of that will be unpacked appropriately. And somebody else, obviously, we've spoken about previously and who's been on this show as well when he first came out, Tommy Robinson. What's your views on him?
So, as I've said many times, I don't know Tommy Robinson, but Tommy Robinson, the political figure, has been targeted by the state. Of that, I have no doubt. Um, Tommy Robinson was, again, put in prison effectively because of what he said and the stance he took on various issues. And he has been undoubtedly brave in the way that he spoke up. I can't. Perhaps it wasn't. Perhaps he wasn't the only voice who spoke up against the rape gangs, but he was a very voluble, if not sole voice, in identifying this vile activity that was taking place in amongst British people. Again, on the altar, I think, of this false notion of equality, of humanity, and progressive discrimination in favor of ethnic minorities. It was that presumption that gave the cloak that protected these, gang rapers, and he called it out. And the state doesn't like it. The state muzzled him. And last year, even though it wasn't about the rape gangs, it was about it was on as a result of a civil action where he had been injuncted from showing a film about a young Syrian boy who had, I think, been in an altercation with a white boy, a white British boy in a school. Um, that was a civil action in which he breached the injunction. It was not a criminal action, and the Attorney General got involved. The Attorney General, being a political appointment, elevated it effectively to the point where he could be imprisoned, and then directed the courts to imprison him. So he was a political prisoner. Another really good example of how freedom of speech has been shut down on the altar of this ideology.
No, no, absolutely. And he came on the Andrew Eborn Show straight after he came out. Is a very emotional interview, one of the most emotional interviews he's ever done. His son was filming it, and he talked about the devastating effect that being incarcerated had upon him. But a lot of people in the media are now, even the mention of his name makes them shudder, even though he was one who shone a spotlight on the appalling situations about the rape gang. Do you think the media's reaction to Tommy is going to change?
I think it's already changing. I think the media reaction to voices such as mine and others who believe in this country, proud of this country, etc., I think it's already changing, but it needs to change a hell of a lot more. And one thing needs to be absolutely understood by people in frontline politics is that we mustn't be throwing people under a bus just because we don't like them. We mustn't be targeting them using lawfare in order to shut them up in the way, for example, that Rupert Lowe was targeted, in the way that certain people in reform will denounce Tommy Robinson for no good reason. It doesn't matter whether you like the man or not. This isn't about him, the man. This is about him, the political figure. This is
Yes.
about what he stands for. And if you dislike him as a man, of course, that's your prerogative. He uses colorful language. He has a colorful history. Some people will regard his language as divisive. It might offend their sensibilities. It probably does. All of that is irrelevant. You have to look at the individual issues at stake, the salient issues being raised, and judge the political impact by those, not by whether you like the man or not. And frankly, some people like Farage should grow up. They need to be braver and stand firm on matters of principle.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you've also made it clear that Tommy would be welcome as a member of the party. In fact, you have a target of 30,000 members. Talk to me about the ingenious strategies that you're going to deploy to grow Advance's UK base so quickly.
So the key, I think, now for Advance UK is I've been, as I said, badgered by people to do it, and I believe it is absolutely necessary that we have a new political force. But I now want the British people to rally round me and to rally round Advance UK and evidence that they really want it. So what I've set is a bar of 30,000 members. That's roughly the membership Reform had when the general election was called last year, and we got 5 seats in that general election. So 30,000 members, in my mind, is a sort of critical mass of membership, which would allow the party to really function, with an army of campaigners across the country and deliver its mission statement through grassroots movements. So the 30,000 figure is an important figure. And in order to get there, what we're doing in Advance UK said that we will reduce the membership fee from £30 a head to £10 a head, so that we get as many members on board as fast as possible. And when we get to 30,000 members, I will donate £100,000 myself to the party to evidence that I stand absolutely shoulder to shoulder with our membership and the people of this country. And we will apply for full party status with the Electoral Commission. And from that point on, we will then fight elections and do everything else that a political party does.
Okay. You mentioned Rupert Lowe, and you and I have spoken about Rupert and how and his treatments at the hand of reform. And I understand there's ongoing action regarding that. What role will Rupert Lowe play in Advance UK?
So Rupert and I have had extensive discussions, and Rupert's been phenomenal on the public stage with the various bits of work he's doing, the rape gang inquiry and so on, which I don't think we would have had a national rape gang inquiry if it hadn't been for Rupert's efforts. Um, but Rupert doesn't want to be part of a political party right now. He wants to run a movement, and uh, I will support him in all he does. And I'm sure he will support us in all we do. And, I hope that in time, when he's back in tune with party politics, wants to get stuck into a party, that we will be the party he joins.
Okay. So who else have you approached to join your new party? Andrew Bridgen, for example?
So we are going to be releasing members of the college and members of the executive over the forthcoming weeks. There's no rush to do that. The key is to get to the 30,000 members that I mentioned. We already, by the way, have 850 odd members who joined the party without, prior to the launch when it was integrity, when they discovered I was doing something. And the key for me is building the membership, getting this on the public stage and revealing our members of college and our executive over time. We do have processes, by the way, by which people will be appointed to the executive. And it's important that we adhere to those processes in the way that any serious party should.
No, absolutely. And so tell me, would Nigel Farage be welcome as a member?
As a member, absolutely. He's a British citizen. Last time I looked, we do have a rule that you can't be a member of another political party. And I believe he is perhaps the only member of Reform UK, true member of Reform UK, because as you know, and as viewers might know, what they call members are basically subscribers. So the lucky thing is that if you think you're a member of Reform UK, you're not. You're most welcome to join our party because you're just a subscriber of Reform UK. The only criteria, Andrew, that we have for membership of Advance UK is that you're a British citizen, you're on the electoral roll, and you're not a member of another political party. Essentially, if you can vote, please join us.
Yeah. And you pointed out beforehand that those people who think they're members of Reform are really just part of Nigel Farage's fan club. Do you stand by that suggestion?
Yeah, they're subscribers. They don't have a voice in Reform. They don't have members. There's no mechanism through which a simple majority of the membership vote. They can remove Nigel Farage.
So in simple terms, even if people have signed up to what you call the Nigel Farage fan club, they could still become members of Advance UK.
Absolutely. It's an Achilles heel he's left open because he hasn't got members. If he'd had genuine members, they would have had to resign to join my party. They don't have to resign from Reform UK because they're not members anyway.
So a few people will be digging into their pockets for that 10 quid for the first year.
Well, I hope so. And Andrew, I hope the first thing you're going to do at the end of the show is dig into your pocket for 10 quid.
Oh, fantastic. You may say that I couldn't possibly comment. It's got to be good. We spoke about this as well, Ben, and I know it's a phrase you don't like, but uniting the right. How do you counter claims that Advance UK might split the so-called right-wing vote, and why do you reject that label?
There is no right wing in this country. Let's just understand that. Right, the term right wing is a historic term, and it referred to people who sat closest to the king in Parliament. It's a completely redundant term. What the left, if you, for want of a better description, those who believe in the supranational order, those who are down our democracy, those who are for mass immigration, don't care about the culture of history, want to uh, uh, muzzle our belief in the nation and so on. Those people, they want to categorize those of us who believe in the country, who are proud of the country, who want the democratic unit of the United Kingdom. They want to categorize us as right wing. And the more fervently you believe in the country, the prouder and more patriotic you are, the further they wish you shove you along that spectrum. And it's ideal for them to call you far right because that through calling you far right, they can shut you up. But it's far stupid to call anyone far right because the term makes no sense.
Yeah.
And the Conservative Party is not right wing. the Conservative Party, unless it rediscovers its conservatism, is still part of that supranational way of thinking. And Reform UK doesn't believe in the four principles that I set out. On nation state, Farage is on the record saying that a united Ireland is inevitable. He hardly speaks out for Northern Ireland. If you don't understand the unit of democracy, you can't stand for the democracy. He uses. He doesn't understand democracy. He doesn't trust his own people. That's why they're not proper members. He shuts down speech, freedom of speech in his own party. Farage is not the answer. It's not that I'm splitting the right wing vote. There is no one standing unashamedly and proudly and coherently for the nation state, freedom of speech, democracy, and equality under the law. We need a party that will do that. Does that
Yeah,
make
okay.
sense?
No, of course it does. And I still think
Yeah.
there will be some people who will be torn between voting for the Tories, Conservatives, the sort of Reform or Advance UK. So that's what they mean about sort of splitting the vote. It's trying to tempt over those people who might have to pick between those three parties and any others that might come about before the next election. Now, before beyond founding the party in its new name, although it was the Integrity Party beforehand, as you've made clear, what role do you envision for yourself, especially with your massive £100,000 personal investment? Once you hit those members?
Well, I hadn't anticipated being leader when I set up the party, and it remains the case. I wish the party to be by the British people for the British people. So it's up to the people now to come forward and use the party structure that's been created, if I may say so, so beautifully and elegantly to deliver our mission statement. It's for the British people now to come forward and exploit the party for their ends. Um, and I will lead it for as long as the party wishes me to lead it. The minute the party wishes me to stand down, I will stand down. If a better man comes along, I'll stand down. This is not about me. It is about the party, what the party stands for, and the mechanism by which the party can deliver it for the country.
Okay. And we always talk about United Kingdom, but it's never been more fractured. How will Advance UK foster national unity while allowing diverse views free from ideological policing?
Well, as I mentioned, the first thing we've got to do is get rid of the Equalities Act and Human Rights Act. We've got to, it's got to mean something being a British citizen. You know, it's not a right to be a British citizen, it's a privilege. And that privilege should go with certain benefits and certain obligations. And and that's what we need to reinstill. We need to invigorate. And I think, frankly, the political class has been lazy about the identity of being British. We've taken our existence for granted, and we need to be much more muscular, if you like, about being British. We need the Union flag flying over all state buildings, all municipal buildings, all state schools, all institutions of education that take state, funding. We need to be singing the national anthem in schools, at institutions, and so on. We need to make it utterly clear that if you're British, you get benefits and so on when you find yourself in difficult times. But if you're foreign, you don't. We've got to make it clear that if you enter this country illegally, you are a criminal and you must be deported. These are basic fundamental things that need to be done to invigorate, to re-establish the nation state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland in all its part and for all its people. And I will keep saying that until we get there. And so we need a much stronger approach, a much more forthright approach to being who we are. Stop being shy. Stop taking the back seat. Stop progressively discriminating in favor of other people. Discriminate in favor of British citizens and the nation state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Absolutely, a resounding message. You made that very clear on previous shows where we've talked about it. Tell me about the immediate actions Advance UK would take if it secures official recognition from the Electoral Commission.
So and some of these actions will be taken before we get electoral recognition, but we will be setting up committees between the college and the executive to determine policies, which will be debated thoroughly before they're adopted by the party. We will be doing the same with candidates, finding the best candidates in the country. And by the way, anyone looking at this who thinks they're not going to apply because they said something stupid on Twitter a couple of years ago, I don't care. I don't care if you said something stupid in your past. What I want is people who are capable, um, bright, brave, fearless, love this country, and want to do what's right for this country. If you're one of those people, put your hat in the ring, come forward and join us. And our candidates will be of that ilk. They will be capable people, not people who are party people who toe the line. They'll be entered into the party because they believe in our mission statement. The ideological heft and the direction of the party's ideology, if you like, will be through the college. That will be assured. But then beyond that, we need brave, capable people to save our country. So come forward. And as I say, I don't care what you said on Twitter a few years ago.
Excellent. All good stuff. A lot of people will be sighing a huge sigh of relief regarding
Yeah.
that. The police should be policing the streets, not our tweets, as we often say on the show. You've pledged to ensure that the Acts of Union 1800 are observed completely. How will Advance UK enforce this across Great Britain and Northern Ireland?
Well, the first thing we have to do is unstitch the wretched withdrawal agreement that Boris Johnson put in place. And we mustn't be shy about this. We have to repudiate the Northern Ireland Protocol. The Irish Sea border needs to go. Customs checks need to take place on the island of Ireland. Just by the way, Andrew, just in that one simple thing that I've described there, we will have a sea change of governance in the United Kingdom. Everything that we need to happen in the UK will be necessitated as a result of the denunciation and repudiation of the Northern Ireland Protocol, because the EU won't like it. The supranational order will not like it. They will pick up. And in the protection of the United Kingdom, we will then be forced to pull together as a country. The union will be utterly robust at that point. We will deregulate. We will cut taxes. We will make us a formidable fighting economic force because we will be challenged by the EU at that point. And then at that point, we must respond. And by the way, I haven't mentioned net zero. We'll ditch net zero too, which is another supranational bit of nonsense that's come to undermine our energy, our security, and our welfare.
Yeah, with your promise to restore equality before the law and blindfold Lady Justice, who's supposed to be blind anyway, how will Advance UK dismantle the two-tier criminal justice system?
Well, again, sorry to repeat myself, forgive me, but it is about repealing laws that have been put in place that have created this two-tier criminal justice system. So we have to get rid of the Equalities Act, get rid of the Human Rights Act. We have to we have to abolish the Supreme Court. Actually, Andrew, it was a terrible construction, removing the highest judicial body from Parliament, which should be the not just the maker of laws, but the final arbiter of laws as well. That the Supreme Court should never have been created. It was antithetical to our British Constitution. And the Labour Party now wish to take the bishopric out of whatever we think of the bishopric, however much we want to criticize them for the way they've turned their own backs on Christianity. Their place is in the House of Lords. And we need to get the law lords back into the House of Lords as well, in my view. But
Yeah.
this is something the party needs to debate precisely how we do all of this. But our legal system needs a root and branch. I don't want to use the word reform. It needs a root and branch restoration. We had a fantastic legal system. We had a fantastic democracy. We were the mother of all democracies. And people came to the United Kingdom for the justice that we automatically dispensed. Our law was the reason, by the way, one of the reasons we had the empire, I'm digressing, but one of the reasons the empire came into being is because the British common law was such a fantastic law. And we took it abroad and it was adopted abroad. And it gave us the ability to transact with foreign people, foreign powers, and so on. And the empire spread. And we need to find our way back to that.
Yeah, and you've made that very clear
Yeah.
in conversations we previously had. You've also vowed to remove international laws, supranational institutions, and quangos. Just to be clear for everybody, how will Advance UK return power to Parliament and hold leaders accountable?
If you do all of that, you return power to Parliament automatically. What we've got in Parliament right now, a bunch of glorified district councillors at best. They represent the interests of their parties. They're not representing the interests of the people or this country. And we need to make them utterly accountable on everything. So they can't say, Oh, we can't do it because it's the OBR. Oh, we can't do it because it's the ECHR. Oh, we can't do it because it's a trade and cooperation agreement. No, I'm not interested in international law. I'm not interested in what quangos think. I want you, the people we blooming elect, to deliver what we need. And if you don't do it, we're going to boot you out.
Yeah,
And we'll
we
keep
love the
booting
idea of
people out.
accountability. It should be like a
Yeah.
contract, and in contract law, it has penalties if you breach those promises. You've also highlighted another hot topic for everybody is protecting children from indoctrination. Talk to me very briefly about specific policies Advance UK will implement to safeguard their education.
Well, again, it comes back to this ridiculous notion of progressive discrimination, critical race theory, which informs the educational establishments that if you're white, you're privileged, that if you're from an ethnic minority, you should be protected, promoted, celebrated. All of that needs to be removed. We can't be teaching our children that kind of nonsense. We can't be telling white British children that they are somehow advantaged just because of the color of their skin. That is a ridiculous notion. We've got to bring meritocracy back to the heart of not just our educational establishments, but also the United Kingdom in its widest possible context. And for goodness sake, trans ideology, which is also part of this progressive discrimination, DEI absurdity, that's got to be removed from the educational syllabus. I don't want my children, thankfully my children are through education, I don't want their children learning about this nonsense at school.
Okay. And finally, in 30 seconds, it's a nice sort of soundbite to finish on, with Britain teetering on the edge, your £100,000 pledge and your mission to restore democracy, free speech and justice. Why do you believe Advance UK can spark a revolution, or is this a gamble destined to fail? 30 seconds, wrap us up, Ben.
I don't care if it fails. It's a gamble that has to be taken. Unless we try, we will inevitably fail. We are in last chance saloon. As I said, we're either on the precipice or we're over it, and we need to be lassoed and pulled back. Advance UK provides the mechanism by which this country can be saved. The British people need to rally around it and make it happen.
Okay, Ben Habib, if people want to find out more about Advance UK, we've already premiered your video at 7 o'clock when the embargo ran out. And so worked on that sort of basis. People want to find out more about you very quickly. How can they do that?
Advanceuk.org.uk. Please go to our website, advanceuk.org.uk. Everything is there, including lots of videos from me explaining every bit of the party, how it works, and so on. And please sign up as a member. And Andrew, I expect to see your name on the register.
Ben, it's always a delight. I know you'll be back. We'll continue unpacking. And if people do have questions for Ben Habib, he's a regular on the Andrew Eborn Show. Do get in touch. But for me, for now, thank you very much for joining us, Ben. A pleasure as always.
Thank you.